So it's kind of fun, but probably talk about a couple of those things on this episode. I wanted to talk about this idea that I've been reading in a book. I was checking out the Wilderness Skills and Survival book put out by Meat Eater. I think it was written by Steve Rinella and the group of people that put together the show Meat Eater and the podcast. And a lot of that is where I get a lot of the good information that I get for wilderness outdoor stuff is out of that podcast and out of their content shows and stuff. But I was checking out this passage in their book that I was just reading, and it was talking about outdoor risk in wilderness areas. And it was sort of, it kind of talked about it more broadly, but then it brought it down into the United States. And it was mentioning the number of injuries and then specifically deaths that have occurred in photography-related activities. And it was mentioning that photography-related activities was one of the highest killers in wilderness in the last decade, as we really saw like a big ramp up of it. And I think worldwide the number was somewhere around 230 deaths have occurred, I think in relation to risky photos or selfies or kind of a number of different kind of, activities related around getting a good shot. And I can kind of get into more specifics around professional or, kind of how when doing work outside, you sort of get yourself into those positions. And then also in just sort of the more relaxed take of it, of being on vacation, being a tourist and taking photos and then getting into a risky situation. But as it was mentioning, animal attacks or, like deaths by a wild animal, or something like that, or freezing to death of exposure or something was kind of almost outpaced by the number of people that got themselves into a high risk and then eventually deadly scenario by doing some kind of photo activity in a wilderness location. So I guess in the United States, it was, I think 12 people have died from photo-related activities in wilderness areas within the United States in the last decade. 12 is really not that many, but that also kind of puts into perspective how many wild animal attacks there are that end in a fatality, I guess is how it is. So the numbers of both would probably be more if it was a more flexible tally of injuries only. But as it goes for fatalities, it's pretty low. There's really not many bear attacks. There's like no cougar attacks or mountain lion attacks, right? Like I think there was like one last year, one in Oregon, one in Washington. And then it had also been, I think, a long time since there had really been any cougar fatalities. Sometimes there are attacks. Sometimes it's like after a dog or something. Sometimes there's, bad encounters for sure. And I think it's pretty common, or it ends up being more common than you would have thought for people that spend a lot of time in the outdoors to have a complicated encounter with a individual wildlife specimen. But it's really pretty rare that it ends up in the position of a fatality. And that's sort of one of those weird things that's out about it. But you could probably maybe would put a lot of thought into the risk of seeing a bear when you're out or something like that. But you wouldn't maybe put as much thought into the risk of stepping on a slippery log in a precarious angle near a hill where you're going to take a picture and you think that angle would be right or something. Or you're going to step near the edge of something to hold a camera out to take a selfie picture, of yourself, or just a picture of yourself. I hate the word selfie, as people have been doing that for a long time. But